quick introduction, I'd just like to say welcome to Sam. I happen to have 2 of your books here, Sam. I actually think that Sam is great. Every minute that she speaks, you're going to learn something. I will be posting her information so that you can find her website, and we'll be recording this. So you'll be able to refresh your memory should you find later that you have questions. You'll be able to refresh your memory. So without further ado, thank you, Sam. Take it away.
You're welcome. Well, Dan Poynter was often called the guru of self-publishing. He's a longtime friend. We invited him to many of our Maui Writers Conferences. And Dan Poynter said, if you wait to write, you're not a writer, you're a waiter. I am so glad that you are not waiting to write, that you are taking advantage of this opportunity to get your book out of your head and into the world. So now the very first thing, I hope all of you have paper and pen in front of you or your laptop so you can take notes, because I do not waste your valuable time on ivory tower ideas that have no relevance in your world. We're going to jump right into real life best practices. I've had the privilege of running the Maui Writers Conference for 17 years. And what CAN is to the film industry, we work to the publishing industry. I've worked with many best-selling authors, top agents, editors, etc. So what we're going to do is jump right into what I think are the 6 best practices on how we can write quality books that are a pebble in the pond of our legacy. And in all those 17 years of Maui Writers Conference, our authors didn't agree on anything. Terry Brooks would get up and say, the top fantasy writer at the time, and he said, you have to work with an outline. Elizabeth George, great fiction out of London, would say, I never work with an outline. And then Frank McCourt, Pulitzer Prize winning author of Angela's Ashes, would get up and say, you have to write first thing in the morning. Pulitzer Prize winner humorist Dave Barry would get up and say, I don't get going until the afternoon. So see, it was kind of like my sister, my daughter, my sister, my daughter, all this conflicting advice, except for this, they all agreed on this. You ready? Ink it when you think it. We make a living from our mind, and our life is our lab. And starting today from now on, if something occurs to us and we think, wow, that'd be great in the book, or wow, I never said it quite so clearly before, I've got to remember that. We ink it when we think it, so that those ideas are waiting for us and they can go into our book and make it even better. So here's our quick format. Carrie Fisher, do you remember Carrie Fisher from Star Wars, Cinnamon Bun Ears? Well, Carrie Fisher was one of our favorite keynoters, and she took the stage and she grabbed the lectern and she leaned into the audience and she said, instant gratification takes too long. So you've taken time out of your calendar to be here. So I am going to give you some instant gratification here by giving you a quick preview. I'm going to cover 3 of what I think are my best practices on how to get our quality books out in the world. Then we're going to stop for Q&A. I want to make sure that this is in alignment with your values, your goals, your priorities. So, you know, whether you want to talk about should you self-publish or go with a traditional publisher, or maybe you've got several projects to write and you're trying to figure out which one you ought to do first. We'll do 15 minutes of your questions. We'll go back into 3 more best practices on how we can write a quality book that really does scale our income and our impact for good. And then we'll wrap up with some more Q&A. And then I've got a send-off success story, hopefully that will leave you inspired and ready to go back and write. Okay, idea number 1. Everyone have notes in front of them? Okay, now whether you're like Neil and you've written 22 books, is it Neil? Just nod. 22, 23?
21 so far.
Okay, so whether you're Neil and you're working on your next book, or whether this is the first time you've written a book, we still want to do our W5 form. So on your piece of paper, just put 5 W's on the left-hand side, and this W5 form is going to serve as your North Star. And it's something based on what Eleanor Clift said. Now, Eleanor Clift is a Renaissancer, and we had her at a book salon one time at the National Press Club, and we were talking about our favorite quotes. And Eleanor stands up and she says, my favorite quote is, we're all in a race to be relevant. I said, that's a fantastic quote. Who said that? She said, I said that. So if we want our writing to be relevant, if we want to make sure that it's going to be an ROI of our time and energy and resources, if we're going to make sure it's purposeful and meaningful and time well spent for us and everybody who reads it, well then fill this out. So now I'm going to talk through them quickly so you have context. And then I hope you're writing down your own answers, because in 5 minutes, you are going to have probably more clarity on your book and what will make it a success in your eyes than months of kind of wandering all over. So the first is W, is like, what is your working title? You have a working title for your book, write it down. And if you do not have a working title, what is your topic or theme? Maybe you know you want to write on leadership. You don't have the title yet. Maybe you want to talk about international travel. Don't have the title yet, but you have the topic or theme. Now, still number 1, W, what are 3 benchmark books? I'm going to recommend you go on to Amazon sometime today and you look up your topic or theme and you start looking for books that you respect on your topic. They're not necessarily the top ranked books or the most sold books. They're the books that you respect. And why? Do you respect them because they were page turning and you never knew what was next and it always had useful content? Did you respect the book because the author put himself or herself in the story and you could relate to them? Did you respect that book because it had fresh things that you'd never thought of before and they were really thought-provoking and they earned your attention because they tickled your imagination? So what are your 3 benchmark books? And next, still under the first W, what genre is it? Genre is really important. Do you know that there are 20 subgenres in business? So you can't just say it's a business book, because there's business leadership and there's business career and there's business success. Now, if you're thinking, how do I find out what genre? Go back to your 3 benchmark books and look under product details. If you scroll down on Amazon, you'll see product details, and you may see, like Neil's book, maybe astronomy is one of them. However, maybe there's another genre that we're not even aware of, is that maybe there's a book on the cosmos or the universe or something. So you want to find out what genre your book is. Now, by the way, I know from experience how important this is. When Tung Fu came out 25 years ago, I didn't even know about genre. So guess what? The publisher put it in relationships. Now, the book is still selling 25 years later. It's just that back then, if you walk into a brick and mortar store, self-help is 2 aisles long. It was a destination genre. Relationships is one little shelf. It's me and John Gray. So see, we put baby in a corner by picking a genre that probably did not result in as many sales as possible. Now you think I would have learned my lesson. And so I made really clear that Pop was a business book. Guess what? The publisher put it in business communication, which is kind of a soft genre. It should have been in sales and marketing, because people are always buying books on sales and marketing because they perceive it's going to make them money and they want a competitive edge. So the first W is, what's your working title? What are your 3 benchmark books that you really respect, and what is your genre? All right, let's go down to your next W. Who is your intended audience? Now, there are usually 3 audiences: your primary audience and your second audience. And this is really important, because do you know what agents and editors hate to hear? Oh, everyone will love this book. For them, that's a sign of an amateur. They want us to be able to answer the question, my primary audience is women between the age of 30 and 50 who work from home, or who trying to balance work and life. Or my primary audience are YA, young adults, primarily girls between the age of 12 to 16. The more specific you are, the more you can picture your intended reader in your mind and make sure that everything you say will light them up, will appeal to them, be relevant to them. So what are your 3 intended readers? Now, by the way, don't just identify your demographic. Now, put yourself in the scene of one of your intended readers and start writing down their cares and concerns, their priorities and their problems. So what would they want to know about this topic? What can't they figure out about this topic? What concerns them because they're troubled by this and they don't know what to do about it? What do they wish for? What do they want? Because if you write down in your target reader's voice what they want, you keep that in mind as you write, and it will make sure that you connect with them. And that's the purpose of all writing, is to connect. All right, let's go down to our third W, and that's where and when. Where and when do you want this book published? Where are you going to self-publish, go with a hybrid publisher, or go with a traditional publisher? And by the way, if you want to know the pros and cons of those three options, bring it up in questions and we'll go there. More importantly is when. As I say in the Someday book, if it's not on the calendar, it's not getting done. If it's not on the calendar, it's not getting done. The second thing, all of our authors at Maui Writers Conference agreed, they'd still be working on their books if it wasn't for their deadline. So put a date on the calendar. Now you're thinking, Sam, I have no idea when this book will be done. All right, here are two quick ways to come up with two important dates for your book that turn it from an idea into a rewarding reality. Let's presuppose your book is 200 pages. Okay, it's not a doorstopper. It's not a Who Moved My Cheese. 200 pages. Now let's presuppose that you will have no chapters longer than 10 pages. Now that's really important, by the way, because if we're reading a book and it's 30 pages, we're plowing through those chapters. It's really hard work. We put it down. Who knows if we come back? But Dan Brown with the Da Vinci Code was one of the first mainstream authors to understand the psychology of completion. He knew that if he had 2- and 3-page chapters and then he had page turners, which is at the end of his chapter, he would say, he opened the door and there was the last person he expected to see. How could you not turn the page? So presuppose you're going to have 10-page chapters. Well, now you have 20 chapters. So let's see, can you write 10 pages a week? Can you write 1 chapter a week? Well, if so, that book is going to take you about 6 months to finish the manuscript, the draft manuscript. Put an editing party right now on your calendar for September. You're going to invite about 15 colleagues over to your house. And if you want to know exactly how to do an editing party or friends, bring it up in the questions. In one day, in one afternoon, you can get feedback on your book that lets you know what's not working, what is. You'll get energized because people will be saying, this is great when it's ready. So put an editing party on your calendar right now for September. Now, even if you take a couple of months to get the cover done and to get your endorsements and to integrate that feedback, you can still have a launch in January. Unless you're going to deal with a traditional publisher, and then we have to time that out longer. But if you're in charge of the project, you can have a quality book out in January 2022. Oh, 21, just seeing if you were paying attention. So when and where, decide where you're going to get it published and when you're going to have your editing party and when you're going to have your launch date and where. You're going to have it at a country club in your area. You're going to have it at an independent bookseller. You're going to have it at the Commonwealth Club. Once you have that date on the calendar, we can reverse engineer how to make it happen. All right, let's go down to the next W. First one was what? What's your title? What's your benchmark book? And what's your genre? Next is who are your primary readers, and put yourself in their shoes and talk out loud about their wants and wishes. Next is where and when is your projected date when this book is going to be out in the world. Next one is why. Why will it be an ROI for readers? What are 3 reasons why they would want to buy this book or read this book? Now I'm going to give you 3 quick examples about more precise you are, the more you're able to bake it into the book to make sure that it's worth reading and buying. So I have a friend named Steve Persante, who is the publisher of Barrett Kohler. And you know his primary prerequisite for publishing a book? What's the shift? What's the shift? Because see, it can't just be a download of information That's infobesity. It can't just be a listicle of next steps. That's infobesity. No, what is the shift? What do people think now? What will they think at the end of the book? What do they believe? What's their behavior now? What it'll be at the end of the book? Because if we want people to start something or stop something or do something differently, now that makes a book worth reading. Number 2, maybe what will make your book worth reading or buying is that you know that we are in a short attention span age where goldfish have longer attention spans than we do. I'm not making that up. That's from research by Nancy F. Cohen. Goldfish, 9 seconds. Human beings, 8 seconds. So maybe what you say is you're going to start every chapter with a real life example. Not going to start it with information. You're going to jump into the scene of a real life example. So you have people at hello and they can't put the book down because every time they finish a chapter, they look at the next chapter and it's this incredibly real life story that pulls them in. And before you know it, they can't put the book down. So maybe that's what you're going to do to make your book one of a kind or first of a kind. Number 3, what might make your book interesting? Do you want to know a surprise? Did you see the movie Pretty Woman by any chance? The director, Gary Marshall, was one of our favorite keynoters at Maui Writers Conference, and he said, Hollywood directors can predict when their movies will make money based on 2 things. Number 1, do people walk out of the theater repeating something they heard word for word? So see, maybe one way your book is going to be worth reading and buying, it has one big idea, one repeatable, retweetable rally cry, because if you have one really wonderful premise that can be used in the marketing, that can be used on the book jacket, it's repeatable and retweetable, pithy and profound, that can make your book worth it. Now, you know the other one that made movies profitable? If it's a comedy, do people laugh in the first 2 minutes? Because see, the jury is out. If they're going to see a comedy and they don't laugh in the first 2 minutes, they conclude it's not funny. If they do laugh, they conclude that good, this movie is funny, and they are predisposed to enjoy it thereafter. So I'm looking at you. How could you pleasantly surprise readers, even if it is a serious topic, with something funny up front? Because see, the jury is out. And if it's just information, they're going to maybe conclude it's hard work. However, if there is some true humor, something that gets their eyebrows up, that causes a smile, now they like your book and they're much more likely to keep reading because it had that surprise element of humor. Now let's come back down to the last W on our W5 quiz, and then it's time for some questions to make sure that this is relevant for you. Last one is, why will it be an ROI for you? Why will this be worth all the time and effort that you're pulling into it? And now we want 3 tangible reasons. Maybe the first one, maybe with what's going on in the coronavirus, this will be worth it if you just have purpose for your days. If you're just being tangibly productive and you're doing something meaningful that you look forward to, that at the end of the day, you have something to show for it. So maybe that will be an ROI for you. Or maybe an ROI for you is that you do want to get a TEDx talk out of this. That if you do a quality job on a book, often TEDx curators will come looking for you or will ask you to speak on that topic because they were so favorably impressed with your big idea and your story or your content. Maybe you want to be a go-to media resource. Maybe you really are an expert on this, and your book is a pebble in the pond of your legacy and is going to reach decision makers at podcasters and TV and radio stations, and they're going to reach out to you because now you're an authority on the topic because you produced a quality book with quality content. So those are just 3 examples. Maybe this is just the memoir, something about your parents who were immigrants, and you just want to be able to give it to your children, and that would be worth it. Maybe what would make this project worth it for you is that if you heard from someone who said that they felt all alone, that they were the only one going through this, and that your book was like a life raft for them because it helped them realize that they are not the only one who's done gone through this, that there is other people, are other people who have been there, done that, and that they can get through it too. So that's our W5 form. And believe me, if you condense that into one page and you post that by your laptop, you post it by your desk where you work, while you're writing, you can look up and it serves almost like a checklist. Am I not just saying what I want to say? Is this going to be relevant to my target readers? Am I using examples that they would be able to relate to? Instead of just writing what we want to say, we look up and say, now, why will it be worth it to them? I said I wanted this book to be funny. Have I said anything that's funny yet? Maybe time to get cracking on that. And this W5 form will really help our book be relevant and our book relate to the people we want it to be read by. All right, Debbie, I'm going to pass the dashboard over to you because you can open it up, and I welcome your comments or questions.
Sure. I'm going to ask if anyone has a question, please unmute yourself and ask the question. I have our pictures hidden. I can see the roster of who's here, but just go ahead and speak up because I want to make sure that Sam is the one viewed, not the lineup of speakers. Okay, so go ahead. It looks like Michael has a question. Michael, go ahead.
And by the way, I know as a backup, Debbie, is that if for some reason the unmute button isn't working, you can type into chat, right? Your
That's
question,
right.
and Debbie can see it, and she can ask that of me as well. So, Michael, if you're there, I welcome your question. If not, put it into chat, and I'll get to it.
I hear a garbled sound, so hopefully he'll put it into chat. Anyone else have any questions? We have a shy crowd here, Sam. I do want to say that, you know, I do have a quick question myself. Oh, wait, hold on. We have a chat here. Someone's typing a message. Can you tell us a little bit about the process of self-publishing? Oh, that's a good question.
Okay, here we go. Everyone on your notes, please put 3 columns. We're going to talk about self-publishing and hybrid publishing. And now, Debbie, I'm going to keep myself to 4 minutes on this, okay? Because, you know, you can give a whole day workshop on self-publishing. So I'm just going to share the best practices. Here's a quick example. 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, if you self-published, it was quote unquote vanity press, and major publishers would not even want to talk to you. Guess what? Now major publishers are often the first to say, you know, we're not too sure about this book. Go and sell 10,000 copies and then come back and we'll talk. Because you've proven that it's going to make money for them, which is what they care about. So it is no longer mutually exclusive. In fact, I talk about Terry Jones, who is the founder of Travelocity and Kayak. Guess who self-published his book? Because he could have gone with a major publisher. However, you lose control when you go with a major publisher. It often takes 18 months, a minimum, to get an agent, to get an editor, to go through that cycle. And sometimes you don't even control your own cover. You don't even control the distribution of it or the publishing date. So if you like control, and Terry is an entrepreneur, he wanted control of his own project, going through self-publishing is a viable option. Now, quickly, here is, if you deal with, let's say, CreateSpace, which is part of Amazon, you can just go to CreateSpace on Amazon, and right there are all of the logistics of what it takes to submit to them. The good news about self-publishing is that the turnaround time, once you submit your polished and your proofed manuscript to them, it can be up virtually in less than 2 weeks, and they have print on demand. So once you publish, people can access your book digitally. However, if they want to order 1 copy or 5 copies, they can order it, and Amazon will print it up and ship it for them, instead of you having to get 5,000 copies of it and have it sit in your garage for the next couple of years. So I really do believe that if you do a quality job of self-publishing, it is a way to get your expertise or your story out in the world in a way that people can access it, because books in our head help no one. Now, believe me, there are pros and cons of self-publishing. If you get a deal with Simon & Schuster, Random House, you still have the cachet and the clout of a major publisher. So there are still some advantages to going with a major publisher. All my books are, well, not all my books. Most of my books are with major publishers because I've been able to leverage them to get foreign sales, etc., and the respect that comes with that. A couple of books I decided to self-publish because I wanted them out sooner. That's enough for 4 minutes.